All right, we are live with an instant reaction podcast. Devin McCourty, one of the all-time great Patriots, just an absolutely phenomenal career. A guy who I think, you talk about prototypical Patriots, the guys that you think about when you think about the way the Patriots play the game of football. Devin McCourty has called it a career. Just an absolutely phenomenal career. Guy who was drafted in 2010 as a cornerback, made the Pro Bowl as a cornerback his rookie year, and then had to transition to safety after struggling. That's not something that guys do, really. I mean, you see a guy who, was successful at one thing, and usually they want to stay in that one spot. And McCourty kind of realized that, yeah, okay, I was a good corner, but once the league kind of figured out, there was some deficiency that I had at cornerback that didn't really allow me to be the best player that I wanted to be. And the best thing for me to do would be to transition to safety. He did that, and he was a phenomenal player. Three-time All-Pro, obviously three-time Super Bowl champion, captain of the team forever, just an absolute leader, warrior. I remember, and I don't know I think it might have been 2011, kind of in the middle of his struggles at cornerback, and he was getting lambasted by the media. I mean, people were just laying into him. This kid stinks, and he's this, and he's that, and all this other stuff, right? And, Bill in the locker room after a game, I think it was after a win, in the locker room after a game, and he said, he went up to him, gave him a hug, and he said, "You could play football for me any day." And he was always a Belichick type of guy. He was always a Belichick type of guy. And Nathaniel comes in with one of the best Pats defenders of all time. And I agree with you. I mean, when you talk about guys that were that important, I mean, he was so important to the team. And again, quarterback of the defense, kind of gave them that, that stability back there, I guess is what I would say. And look, to his detriment sometimes, because he would pass up the counting stats, right? He didn't have as many sacks. He didn't have as many tackles. He didn't have as many interceptions because he played the way that he played. And instead of doing what he did, what he could have done, which is saying, "Oh, I want to do this," no, he was a great player for the Patriots. And I think towards the end of his career, people sort of appreciate how good he was. Not that they couldn't appreciate it earlier in the year, but early in his career. But I think that as time went on, you started to realize like a lot of the stuff they do, they can't do because of him. And I think it's just such a special player. Does he belong in the Hall of Fame? That's another question. That's a question that I don't have the answer to. If I were voting for the Hall of Fame, I would certainly put him in the Hall of Fame. He was retiring the same year as Tom Brady, allegedly. Brady doesn't come back. Assuming Brady doesn't come back, in 5 years, when the hall opens up, you got to choose between Brady and Devin. I mean, obviously you're choosing Brady, but like that's a tough decision, right? So it's really the only way he wouldn't be a first ballot Patriots Hall of Famer. I actually think Brady will get into the Patriots Hall of Fame before they'll kind of waive the 5-year thing and put him in early. But nevertheless, I just think, to me personally, he's a guy that just had so much influence over the team, was such a gregarious guy. Everyone in the locker room loved him. Everyone in the media loved him. He's going to have an instant job at NFL Network. His brother's great on NFL Network. He's been really good on NFL Network when he's been in there. And he just kind of heart and soul of the team, and now you kind of look at the team, you look at the defense, and you look at it and say, there's a big, huge, gaping hole in the secondary. And I don't know how they're going to fill it. I really don't. It's funny because you think about it and you're like, well, yeah, like he didn't put up the crazy, but like the stability, again, it's all about the stability for me, and the fact that he was able to tell people where they needed to go. He was that kind of rock solid guy where you knew that you could rely on him to get everyone in the spot that they needed to be. And so, I think that he's going to be sorely missed by the Patriots. Sorely missed by the Patriots. He'll be great on NFL Network, which I assume is where he's going with his brother. He'll be awesome. He'll be awesome there. And it's good for him. He deserves it. He deserves it. But it's tough. It's tough that we don't have that anymore, right? That's tough for us. But it is what it is. What are you going to do? And I'm happy for him, and I'm happy that he's going on to the next thing. And now you kind of you sit there and say, okay, when you look at the prototypical Patriots defenders, right? Teddy Bruschi, Mike Vrabel, Rodney Harrison. I guess Rodney Harrison, of course, didn't play long here, but played long enough here that I feel like he's one of those guys. But Bruschi, Vrabel, Harrison, Willie, Vince Wilfork, none of those guys, and Teddy put in the time that McCourty did, but none of those other guys put in the amount of years, the number of years that he put in when he was here. And again, he was a Pro Bowler his rookie year, right? He almost won Defensive Rookie of the Year his rookie year. And so you look at it and say, okay, he was really good his rookie year all the way until last year, his final year. He was good last year too. And so the thing is that it didn't really fall off. I was very nervous about it. I was hoping he'd be back. We were talking with Mark, and we said 60-40, that 60% he'd be back, 40% he wouldn't be back. Of course, that episode came out this morning, so kind of whiffed on that. But I thought with Slater coming back, I thought there might be a good chance that he would come back too. But when he was talking about, I got to talk it over my wife, and when he made the comment about Brady coming back to the Patriots, and he was like, oh, I'll definitely be back to play if that's the case. And then he was like, oh, well, I got to talk to my wife about that when she wasn't very happy about that. I was kind of like, oh, kind of seems like he might be leaning towards retirement, right? And I feel like this was inevitable. Look, as it is for every player, obviously. We knew it was coming at some point. But I was hoping we'd get one more year out of him. I was hoping we would. Because, again, he was such an important player to the team. He was such an important player in the locker room, and again, on the field, just on the field, because he was reliable. You knew he was going to be where he needed to be, right? Maybe he felt like he was a half a step slow this year. Maybe he felt like he wasn't, playing to the level that he wanted to be, although I thought he had a pretty darn good year, right? So, but, and maybe he just decided, you know what? I'm going to walk away now. And if I walk away a year too early, I'd rather walk away a year too early than a year too late. Kind of like the Belichick philosophy. It's a Belichick philosophy if I've ever heard one, right? So maybe that's what it was. Maybe he just said, you know what, I'm just gonna, if I regret walking away and I walk away a year too early, then I walk away a year too early, right? And maybe that was his mindset. So whatever the mindset was, we were incredibly lucky to watch him. And again, 5 Super Bowl appearances, 3 Super Bowl wins, just an all-around great player. And it sucks because that 2017 game you lose because of the defense, really, I think. And it just kind of stinks. It kind of stinks that, that happened on his watch. And, but what are you going to do? And they go back the next year and win it. And they win it basically because of their defense in 2018. So, so it's one of those things where you can kind of hang your hat on that at least. And he had a great career. And again, if I'm voting for Canton, me personally, if I'm voting for Canton, I'm voting for Devin McCourty. I'm putting McCourty in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think he did enough. 907 tackles in his career, 35 interceptions in his career. Again, Pro Bowler at corner, Pro Bowler at safety. I mean, that's pretty damn good, right? And so there's not many guys that can do that. Charles Woodson did that, right? And Rod Woodson did that too. But but not many guys in the league can do that. And McCourty was able to do that and became, a phenomenal safety for a very long time. So, it's one of those things. And this is what happens, right? When we start looking at, the 2018 Patriots. I mean, just start looking at the 2018 Patriots and how many guys from that team that won the Super Bowl are gone. There's not many left. There's not many guys left, right? And so that wasn't that long ago. Doesn't feel like that long ago. But, McCourty retires now. And that 2018 team, I mean, there's almost nobody left from that team that's still on this team. So it is, you kind of start looking at it and saying like, oh my goodness, this is a brand new team. And as we kind of go into, we haven't seen the success that we saw for 20 years, right? And they've been good. Don't get me wrong, but you kind of hold on to those veterans and say, these veterans will kind of lead us there. They'll show us the Patriot way. They'll show us the way things are supposed to be done. And of course, Devin did that last year, with the defensive backs, but he's not there this year. Right. And so now you're like, oh man, like, will these guys be able to pick it up? Will there be those leaders in the locker room? And I think that he's confident that there will be. I think that if you look at a guy like McCourty, and I think one of the things you can take away, and look, and I'm bouncing around all over the place here, but I think the big thing for me is that the respect that he got from the league, from, of course, from his teammates, but from his opponents, from the people that played against him, and the respect as a player, but also as a man and as an individual. I mean, just one of the all-time good guys, certainly in the league. And it's a shame to see him go. Of course, you don't want to see him leave, but I think it's the best thing for him. And again, he's going to do great things. His post-playing career too. I think he's going to be. There's an argument. I mean, just seeing him now on NFL Network, he could be maybe even a better analyst than he was a football player, or at least as good. So I think that there's a bright future for him. He's not going away anytime soon. You'll still see him all the time. It just won't be in a Patriots uniform, unfortunately. But the nice thing is he retires a Patriot. He spends his whole career as a Patriot, never leaves. That's something that, out of the guys I named earlier, only Brewski can say that. And so it's pretty nice that we're able to kind of have this guy for the majority, for his whole career, and see the type of player and guy that he was. And so, look, I mean, it was a great career. It's one of those things that I feel like, and we'll talk about it, in the years, or in the weeks, I should say, moving forward, but you can't really appreciate some of these guys until they leave, and you're like, man, that guy was really good. Like, there's not guys like Devin McCourty out there very often. It just doesn't happen, right? And so that's what happens. And when you build your team around guys like that, that's how you win all the time, right? And of course, you have Tom Brady, which helps. But when you have guys like Devin McCourty and he's the leader of your defense, that's why you win all those games, because you have players and you have leaders and you have men like that in your locker room. And I think that's a huge part of it. And one of the things that I think, I used to hang my hat on about Devin was that, like, everyone liked him. There wasn't anyone that was like, oh, he's fake, or he was just a real guy, a genuinely nice guy that everyone liked. And so, he's got some things coming up in the hall. I'm not sure exactly when when this press conference will be. I know it'll be next week at some point. He'll get the press conference with Mr. Kraft and with Coach Belichick, and he deserves it. And the things that they're going to say about him. And again, I just go back to Belichick, right? And Belichick talked about Brewski being, the perfect football player, right? And if I could mold a player into what I was looking for, it would be Teddy Bruschi. And you think about some of the highest praise that anyone could ever get, and that's up there, right? But to have a guy, a student of the game, a guy that loves the history of the game, a guy that loves the game so much, like Belichick does, to see the respect that he had for McCourty, and you knew it was real, right? He's not faking that. He's not saying things like that just because, right? And so I'm looking forward to what he has to say about McCourty, because I feel like, that will be really cool to see, and I think fun to see. And he deserves it, man. He deserves it. He deserves to have people stand around and say nice things about him for about an hour, which would be great. So we'll do that now. We'll do that, hopefully in a few years when he gets to the Patriots Hall of Fame, and then maybe a few years after that if he gets to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we'll see. Listen, it leaves a big gap in the defense, so it's going to kind of readjust some of the plans the Patriots had maybe in the offseason. But he also did it before free agency started, which is big. He's a team guy to the end, right? A team guy to the end, right? It's the last business day before the legal tampering period, and McCourty comes out and announces retirement. Team guy to the end, not wanting the team to be uncertain about that position heading into free agency. And so now, if they want to target someone in free agency, they can. You're not going to be able to replace Devin McCourty easily, that's for sure. But there are some guys out there that can fill the role on the field, I guess. But, quarterback of the defense, leader in the locker room, not necessarily, but hopefully you can kind of piecemeal that stuff together. So obviously a big loss, an all-time Patriot, a guy who, like I say, will be a first ballot, Patriot Place Hall of Fame guy, assuming Brady gets in before 5 years. If not, then it will be he'll be second ballot because of Tom Brady. But I feel like he deserves all the flowers that he gets, and we've been extremely lucky to have him and watch him for the last 13 years of his career, and that's what I'll walk away with is knowing and loving the player, and also knowing that the guy was just as good, right? I didn't know him personally, but every single person that met him walked away saying he's a great guy. And so knowing that is great. And you're right, William. Jesse Bates could certainly be one of those guys. Bates doesn't have quite the speed that McCourty had, but he does have that leadership, right? You saw what happened last offseason with the Bengals, where they would kind of mess around with his contract, and all the Bengals were like, dude, screw you guys. Like, if you're not gonna pay Jesse Bates, like, don't pay any of us. And so he definitely brings that leadership to the locker room that McCourty brought as well. So that's an interesting name. That's certainly an interesting name that they could pursue. So we'll see. I don't know if it quite translates as far as deep safety and whatnot, but that's something we'll figure out as we go down the line. So, but anyways, look, Devin McCourty, 13 years, hell of a player, hell of a guy, ultimate Patriot, walks away after 13 years and leaves the Patriots with a big hole in the middle of the defense that they'll have to figure out. But it was a great career. I'm happy for him, and I can't wait to watch him. I can't wait to watch him next year on the NFL Network. All right, that's all for the instant reaction, guys, and we'll be back next week. Don't forget, legal tampering starts on Monday. I'm hoping we'll have a few more instant reactions earlier on in the week. Hopefully, those will be more upbeat than this one. Unfortunately, lose a guy like Devin McCourty is tough, but we wish him the best, like I say, and we'll talk to you. If not before, we'll talk to you next week. We'll talk to you midweek next week. All right, take care, guys. Enjoy the starter free.